thank you so much for joining us today. I personally am, this is my first time speaking at Identiverse, one of my favorite conferences I've been attending for years. So I'm super thrilled to be here. And again, speaking about my favorite friend, Pam here as well. So again, welcome. So for those who's been in the identity industry for quite some time, when we think of Pam, I think most of us know who Pam Dingle is because she does all this amazing work. However, whenever we are, interacting with our clients or whomever, and if my husband hears the word Pam when I'm on a conference call, he's like, "Who's Pam?" So I'm sure some of us have run into those, situations. But really, with all the jokes aside, we're super excited to talk about Pam and the evolution of the, Pam that we've seen in the industry, and then we're going to actually talk to you about the mindset shift. So yesterday, Andre talked about identity under attack, and there was no prior coordination, but it really resonated with me because that actually speaks to the mindset we're going to be talking about today. So without much further ado, we're going to start out with introduction here. So, hi everyone, my name is Grace Sands. I am a manager within KPMG Cybersecurity Services practice, and my journey to PAM, I was managing different identity projects at a federal agency, and then somehow I fell into PAM because somebody else who was managing it left. And ever since, it's been something that I've been very passionate about. I think sometimes I get in trouble because I always say, "Oh, I want to do PAM. I want to talk about PAM." And some of my leadership says, "Grace, you should be talking about broader identity. It's not just about PAM." So, I'm still going through that transition myself. And then my colleague here, Zach.
Hey everyone, so great to see so many friendly faces in the audience. A lot of them I haven't seen in person for a long time, which is outstanding. So I'm Zach Limacher. I'm a managing director in KPMG's Cybersecurity Services. A bit of my history, I started my career the way many of you did as a professional classical musician and made the transition into technology and cyber in the early 2000s in San Francisco, and first at Charles Schwab in financial services and identity, and then I've been consulting and leading privileged access management and identity security-oriented initiatives here for quite a while. So looking forward to talking to you.
All right. So before we get to the fun part and sharing our, what we believe how PAM is evolving, we have an icebreaker for you. And I expect full participation, especially those from KPMG. So icebreaker, for those who can't see the screen, I know the text is a little small from the back. So I would like to see you guys raise your hand whenever I go through the options here. So traditionally speaking, which of the following is not considered as privileged access? 1, privileged accounts. 2, users with privileged access, regardless how privilege was assigned. 3, administrative authorizations. 4, trust relationships such as SSH keys. And 5, high-risk business users.
You can shout. 5.
Thank you. So really, that was a trick question. And again, really the point we want to talk about here today is that evolution of PAM and then the mindset we're going to embrace. And really, when we talk about high-risk business users, one of the things that we want to talk to you about is that the controls, the methodologies, or disciplines that were born out of the traditional PAM world, it should get extended into high-risk business world. So without much further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Zach, and we're going to talk about some of the content we have prepared here, how it will all help with moving forward with really achieving the overall comprehensive identity security, and then also, of course, it's not a conference if we don't talk about zero trust, right? So with that said, Zach.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thanks. I'll run the back. Okay. So. This is really a strategic discussion about how we make that mind shift in our programs and in our security to make sure that we're aligning to this attack, identity being under attack right now, and the theme that has to come with that. So in order to talk about this, when we think about this, we're using two things at the same time. So we saw some detailed presentations earlier today about Active Directory resilience and under attack, ransomware discussion that Joe did earlier from Delinea. And a lot of these things get into a lot of the details about here's the attack that happened, here's how it's thwarted. But we wanted to talk strategically when it relates to the mindset of how we believe you should approach these things. So first of all, when it comes to the attacker's journey, really this is a cyber kill chain type of exercise that we think that you should be using at all stages of that. So first of all, in order for an attacker to accomplish anything in your environment, they're going to have to plan and research that attack. They're going to have to accomplish the attack. After they land, after the email is clicked in a phishing event or otherwise, they're going to have to escalate their privilege, move laterally and escalate their privilege, and then get to whatever type of end game that they're doing, right? During this, as cybersecurity professionals, as we're defending, the NIST cybersecurity framework can be used at all layers of this process, even at the planning stage, to defend against each one of these things, meaning that you can do work to prevent planning, accurate planning, to prevent an attack from happening, to after they've landed, to prevent those escalations, and to eventually stop people from getting to the end game, right? You can detect those things and stop them at that point. And of course, after things happen, you can respond and recover. Does that make sense? And so when we talk about these topics, Andre talked about the authenticated being the new authentic, right? In this scenario, we see that you have many ways in which to approach these issues. So we're going to talk about the attack surface and landing here. Secondly, we're going to get to the surface area and all of the portions of the identity world that are available that you need to protect. Then we're going to talk about what's next after that?
Zero Trust Security.
The Zero Trust framework and the portions of how it fits into the context of your identity security program. And then we're going to talk about the actionable next steps.
All right, so now that Zach has talked about, positioning your PAM controls, the capabilities, disciplines, all that against the attack and defend, the mindset, I really want to take time for all of us to really think about the surface area we're dealing with. So I'm going to go ahead and read over some of the different components within the surface area that we all have to consider when we're talking about our privileged access security, as well as overall identity, as well as your overall cybersecurity. So, and then, on the side here, we're going to have some of the statistics, but, those are some of the statistics that you have seen elsewhere in various reports, essentially calling out that, we're seeing a lot of things happening, or, privileged access, the kind of role it plays when it comes to, compromises and whatnot. So let's take time and actually go through these things. And really, I want everyone to reflect and think about what is in my environment that we as identity professionals have to protect. So first and foremost, users and different user types. Starting from, again, when you talk about privileged access, of course, we always talked about the administrators. But when you talk about the identities overall, the surface area, we have employees. We have administrators, but then we have customers, vendors, machines, bots, third parties. And I'm sure it will grow even more later. The second layer here is how those identities, how those user types interact, access, what is in your ecosystem. So we have all different types of access types here as well. So, passwords, secrets, certificates, APIs, keys, biometrics, passwordless. And then the next is, the systems and the hyperscalers, the platforms basically that is used to enter into your environment. So we're here talking about, the applications, different networks, servers, workstations, databases. And then ultimately, as cybersecurity professionals and identity professionals, what is the point of all of this knowing what's in your surface area? Because we're ultimately, actually I skipped a step, never mind, sorry. And then all of these identities, the access types, all of this interacting, interacting in your environment, all the way from, the environments you have, so whether it's on-prem or cloud, as well as, virtualized machines, what have you. So then the whole point is that ultimately we, as identity professionals, security professionals, we're trying to protect the data. So with that said, just looking at even the different wordings here with everything that is in the surface area, I think this really points out the fact that this is just getting more complex than ever. And then also, it's not just 1 + 1 in each layer. It's multiplication. So it's not like you're solving one particular problem that is very straightforward. It's an exponential problem that you are all dealing with. So that's why, again, with the complexity and, again, we are constantly working to, develop, all of the protections around all of these avenues that adversary can take advantage of. So that's why it's so important for us to understand what is in our surface area and then how do we defend, against anything that could come your way, and then using all of your controls that you may already have in your environment. It doesn't even have to be a PAM solution. From your IGA solution all the way through, any other cyber solution, how do you really use all of that put together to really defend, your environment here?
Yeah, and Grace, to add on there, when we talk about the, authenticated being the new authentic, or how you deal with this. A lot of the controls that are born of PAM, so you think of password management, de-anonymization, session management, all these types of things, we'll start to see an elision of those things brought forward so that if we're going to, apply more security and more identity controls to your average user or especially to high-risk business users, we're going to have to take these, in some ways, sort of heavy controls that existed on the back end, move them forward into all of the different things we care about, right? All the different types of high-risk access, and then do them at scale, right? Somehow, regardless of how we do it within our tooling, we're going to have to accomplish scale. So that means getting those session management forward, getting workforce password management to the next level before we can start to decrease the reliance on those things. It's really critical that we up the ante, because otherwise the rate of compromise is going to be too high, especially if the bad actors are leading the charge in terms of this next year in particular, as GPT and AI and everything else is a household name. That means that everyone that wasn't using it before is using it now. We're going to have to pay attention heavily and make sure that we take it as our historical really tight controls and scale them very well.
So now that we covered, the surface area and as well as the new mindset we are going to be embracing. So, when we talk about zero trust and, all of these capabilities, the controls that we are collectively adopting, clearly identity is, at the center of it. We all know that. I think we're seeing it ourselves. Our peers from different domains are recognizing really identity is, where it is. It's so important. And then, with what Andre said yesterday, how do we work together to, scale the assurance? And then, again, the quote on the authenticated is the new authentic. Those are the things that I think we as an industry have to figure it out. But essentially, identity security, first of all, doesn't happen in a vacuum. And then, as Zach mentioned earlier, the controls that are typically born out of, the PAM world or the identity world, they can be extended farther into different, the domains, and when you're talking about zero trust. And then, I don't want this to come off as, okay, immediately, all of a sudden you, try to extend this control into this. No, you already have these solutions, these processes and methodologies all already in your environment. So I'm not saying discount any of that, but it's, again, continue to reevaluate. And then second of all, I think with all of the components that we're talking about here, I think one of the important things is that, at the end of the day, again, identity as at its core, when we're talking about the comprehensive identity security, we're seeing the convergence within within our industry itself. Where you're seeing a lot of vendors, where it used to be they were known for this one particular capability. But now everybody's an identity security vendor. So, with all those things considered, again, it's just, it can't happen in a vacuum. And then second, we have to figure out, again, how do we scale the level of assurance and then, again, making sure that authentication is also a huge part of, what we do with all of the identities here.
Yeah, and so as we're tying these things together that we've talked about, right? The context, your industry, your size of company, your spend you potentially have allocated this year, right? You walk down to the vendor landscape here as an example. It's very overwhelming that it's a luxury, right? But very overwhelming that there are so many great ways in which people are chipping away at these problems and offering the capabilities that we all need to get this done, right? But it's very, very, very far from 20 years ago when it was like, hey, find out what you're doing in this category. Here's your 7 categories. Which one are you picking, right? At the end of the day, if you're not business empowered, if you don't understand what's important to you, you don't understand the risk of how people are going to be attacking your environment, you don't utilize maximize your previous investments, which for all of you is different, right? All of us, it's different, right? Maximize those investments, figure out what's important, work with your larger CISO and security organization to understand where your controls, your other compensating controls are, then find those right places to invest, because you're going to have to up the total and reduce the likelihood and impact of bad things happening within your environment. And that answer, although there's going to be similarities, we all have really good frameworks to come in and drop in and get you a good percentage of the way there as it relates to things. But really what's going to set your organization apart is going to be how you maximize your previous investments, how you don't duplicate your efforts, how you don't just go and re-secure the same thing over and over and over again, and how those general housekeeping things that you may or may not have done, how you get those out to the corners and start to up those things to make sure that as attackers are generating faster and more efficiently and more effectively out to those corners, that you're taking care of business and making sure that you're shutting them down too.
Yeah, Zach. I mean, obviously the whole hottest topic right now is AI and everything. So clearly, again, attackers are getting even more sophisticated than ever. So I think seeing here also that big picture of all of these security capabilities, these are essentially your weapons, and nothing should constrain you from using them, again, against all of these attacks that you're faced with. So with that said, we're going to talk about what can you walk away with as a next step, regardless of your role, and what can we do together, to take action?
Exactly. So the very first thing is all about. Can you go one more? All about maximizing your investments and starting to bring those identity capabilities that you've been using, some for your highest assurance and administrative users and other types of things there, start to bring those forward. Find those use cases that you care about, that you've invested in, and make sure that they're protected, right? An administrative user might be nearly as important if you're a financial institution and there's someone that can go in and change interest rates for your entire world, right? My guess is that the types of controls that are applied there are not necessarily equivalent to what's happening on the other side, but these are the types of things through coordinated attacks that are going to be focused on. So start to take those capabilities you either have in-house that you're good at and move them left, right? Secondarily, the best of access management. This aligns so much to resounded to what Andre was saying with the authenticated being the new authentic, in that at every stage of this game, whether zero trust fundamentals or not, we need to know who or what identity is attempting to execute each of these things. And so we need to work together. You see tons of things here within the conference that are talking about taking those things to the next level. We need to embrace them quickly and widely. We need to put in controls in front of things that are anonymous, and to bring the best of access management to your entire world. And then next, even though your employees and colleagues have already started to use AI as a regular part of their work, whether you support it or not. We really need to be leveraging AI over the course of this year, A, to secure it in your environment, and B, to utilize it as these capabilities are built into your vendors, as you have additional capabilities, your AI pipelines and all those things need to be secure. But as these things and these capabilities come about, this is the year where you're going to have to get to quicker adoption on these types of tools.
Great. And with that said, we'll take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Just a few minutes left. Yes.
So there's been a lot of talk about being prepared for AI, right? So how as we identity professionals can start thinking about our roadmap towards setting ourselves up for success by leveraging AI? We always talk about the negative aspects that AI might bring in, but to the point that one of the keynote speakers said yesterday, I think also mentioned, there's a lot that we can leverage from a positive standpoint. So what are your initial recommendations of sort on how we can be prepared and leverage AI for the positive impact into identity?
Yeah. So the question is about leveraging AI. How do we leverage AI for the positive impact into identity? And I know we've been talking a lot. I'm pointing here to Katie a little bit, talking a lot about AI heavily and off to work. I think the key to it is really sitting down, forming a AI governance and strategy, and getting a handle on what's happening in your world. Your AI that goes from an AI strategy to securing AI pipelines to using AI to your benefit. And there are a lot of other AI-specific experts and security experts that could be brought into that discussion. But I think that to some degree, I don't believe that identity is specifically leading that pack, but we need to be leading that, in my opinion, we need to be leading the pack in terms of being business customers to the capabilities that are there, and understanding if identity is the first place we're going to be attacking, we need to be aware of that at its core. So I think that establishing that governance track, making sure your organization has somebody in the security organization as well as in your business that has their fingers on the pulse of what's going on there, and then making sure that everyone's prepared to move appropriately but quickly towards those investments. Does that make sense? I know that's more strategic than...
Yeah, and then and my personal take is that, again, disclaimer, I am not an AI professional by any means, but I think, if you're talking about if identity industry is pulled in from the get-go, when we're talking about governance and all of the controls that should come with AI, I think some of the insights that we bring is super helpful. I mean, when we talk about identity governance, we talk about personas all the time. So yeah, those insights that we have through that work, and it's not just security, personas we're talking about. We, coordinate with our HR partners and, the key stakeholders within the organization to define these personas as a part of what we already do. So if that can be leveraged to at least accelerate a little bit of, when it comes to, the controls that can be put in behind AI, I think that could be, hey, that's better than nothing, right? So it's just my personal take here. I think we had another question on this side. No, earlier when we were first asking the question.
Any other questions? Yeah, hi. Yes.
So do you have any recommendation towards machine-to-machine integration, end-to-end, where I was thinking about it? Do you have any
Yes. So within the privileged landscape, and a lot of that thing has less to do. So the question was about machine-to-machine identity and protection. So clearly in the world we talk about whether it's in the DevOps world and the secrets management or otherwise, getting a handle, making sure that things are not hard-coded into code, making sure you're scanning environments, the type of things that AI or anything else is going to be using to find in order to make their way into your environment. We know the perimeter is gone, right? Even some environments, we know some folks that have a pretty good handle on their physical and cultural environment. People people that go into the office every day and other things. But if you're moving your tools to SaaS, you're doing other things, other types of expansions, the truth is your perimeter's gone. It's not just that they're inside the walls. And so, yeah, machine-to-machine stuff is critical. Using Dynamics tools, secrets management, and other types of machine-to-machine things, getting a handle on your keys and cryptography and all of the other types of methods for talking to each other, I think those things are massive. And truthfully, I think they are just as likely to be exploited from external scans, from code from your team putting code into external AI-oriented tools to validate and troubleshoot and write code. Anything else to add to that? Okay. Did that get towards your?
Yes. Sorry. But it has more to take towards multi-tenancy environment, where your infrastructures are equally spread between multiple SaaS products, and if your platforms are different, then probably the communication needs to be tighter, and probably I would expect some sort of information. But that's it.
Yeah. Great point about the multi-platforms and multiple hyperscalers potentially, and internal and external. All of us have, when we talk about this mindset, to my take on the matter, I think that, all things equal, centralizing some of these security functions and other types of things makes a lot of sense. We can govern them, we can centralize them, and otherwise. But we all know that sometimes the most advanced functionality exists closer to home, native tools within the platforms themselves, which creates a very disparate governance and wider surface area for those types of things. So, and not to mention that if you get into a world where you're fighting against your developers and other folks in terms of you're not in a partnership type of arrangement, and you have thousands of people working against you, you're in a difficult situation. I think the previous discussion had a lot to do with the human factors of those things. So if you take the types of approaches we're talking about, combined with a human partnership-oriented approach, knowing that centralized, if all things equal, makes sense, I think then you're in a position to look at your previous investments, look at the culture of what your skill set is. If you have people that are used to using one particular cloud hyperscaler and you've got a lot of advanced things, or there's an infrastructure automation tool that also has some secrets management capabilities that they're using, trying to get on the bandwagon to what they want to do, trying to figure out how much cultural change that they can tolerate. All those things will help you to drive forward, because at the end of the day, you're trying to chip the likelihood and impact of something bad happening. You want that on the heat map, you want that going down and to the left, and however you can make that happen, given what you have, is something typically you'll find us supporting. Because very little of life is like a reference architecture, right? We're lucky if we can get towards the target architecture, and sometimes we're dealing with duct tape, right?
Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right.
All
I
right.
think we're good.
Actually.
Oh, there's one more?
Oh, okay.
What?
We thought that was a question, but he was raising his hand to clap.
Okay.
So.
Come on. Okay,
Thanks,
gotcha.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.